And welcome back, family, to another installment of Metaphysics on Your Mind. Um, we left off. We were talking about Noah and the flood, and I kind of left up more or less what we had from the last installment. And I believe we were talking about how we're getting into more numerology. So we talked about how there were 9 generations from Adam through the line of Seth to Noah, and that bespeaks consciousness because 9 is the number of consciousness. We're going to go through some more numbers, but we talked about the 144,000 that, would in Revelation that would be quote unquote saved. 1 plus 4 is 9. And we added up the mark of the beast, 666, 18, 9, consciousness, just a lower dimension of the consciousness, right? This number is less than that number. And then, there's just all kind of numerology in the Bible. As a matter of fact, just since we're on the consciousness thing, just to give you another example, if we go to, let's go to John 21, 3 through 11. So this will be another example of how the book uses, what we're calling our tools and then some in its expression. So this is John 21, 3 through 11. So this is the disciples who were out fishing. They're about to go fishing. And then, of course, it will also include Christ. Anyway, we'll start off with verse 3. Simon Peter saith unto them, I go a fishing. They say unto him, we also go with thee. They went forth and entered into a ship immediately, and that night they caught nothing. But when the morning was come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. Then Jesus saith unto them, Children, have ye any meat? They answered him, No. And he said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. Therefore, that disciple whom Jesus loved saith unto Peter, It is the Lord. Now when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he girt his fisher's coat unto him, for he was naked, and did cast himself into the sea. And the other disciples came in a little ship, for they were not far from land, but as it were 200 cubits, dragging the net with fishes. As soon then as they were come to land, they saw a fire of coals there, and fish laid thereon, and bread. Jesus saith unto them, Bring of the fish which ye have now caught. Simon Peter went up and drew the net to land full of great fishes, 153. And for all there were so many, yet there was not the net broken. So all of that basically is to say is Christ tells the disciples who don't seem to be having any success in finding fish, he tells them to cast their net on the right side. Okay? So again, facing you being north, the right side, the right hemisphere of the brain. Cast thy net to the right side. That's the connection to the spiritual dimension, remember? So, and then he said that they would catch many fishes, which they did. Now, what was the number of fishes that they caught? He said 153. So 153. 1 plus 5 plus 3 equals 9. So in other words, that story is also about consciousness, okay? So that's, these are the clues that we'll come across that will help us to kind of figure out that, we're not supposed to get too caught up in the externals because we're talking about something that's internal. We're talking about consciousness. So, depending upon whatever the particular story or parable, there will always be, in most cases, there'll be some numerological component of many of the parables and stories in this book. And, so you can kind of see why would somebody keep track of they caught exactly 153 fish, right? You could say, over 150, but there's a reason, because they're giving you the clue that we're talking about consciousness, okay? Same thing here. Remember, Cain had a mark that was called the mark of Cain. Well, this was the number of the beast, the mark of the beast. Well, the beast, we'll get to it in the, down the line. We'll find out who the beast is. But numerology is threaded through a lot of this book. So it's helpful if you have an idea that those are things that you want to look at to give you a little bit more of an idea of what is the context of that part of the story. Okay, so let's go back to Genesis and we'll pick up the story of Noah. Genesis 6. Okay, here we go. So we talked about how the Genesis 6:4 talked about there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came on unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. And again, what we're saying is, you sons of God, the clue here is when you're talking about God, you're talking about the higher. So the sons of God, when you hear daughters of men, right? You're talking about the lower emotions. Well, these two they don't readily mix, the higher and the lower. So what happens is when we, shall we say, eat from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, when we mix the higher or divine thoughts of God, and we mix them with our emotions, we produce giants, okay? So this is a bloated character, the giant. Like, again, we spoke about Goliath. It is a bloated figure, but it can also, again, be a system that attempts to combine these, and then what you get is a repeat. You get the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, some good stuff and some bad stuff, right? It's a mixed bag. The idea when you're quote unquote intercoursing with the higher, when you're in the garden, when you're in the higher mind, is you're leaving this. These two don't really mix, okay? Remember, in the last installment, we said that the carnal mind was enmity, was against God, and was not subject to the law of God. So when you mix them, you end up producing something that's, it may be high-minded initially, but it's what it's basically saying is it's bound for corruption, okay? Which, we all witness in the course of our existence. So anyway, let's keep going. And I believe we left off with Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. This is after the Lord says, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and the creeping thing. We remember creation. We had the creeping things, sensations, and the fowls of the air, the lower thoughts, and for it repenteth me that I had made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. Okay, when it says Noah walked with God, that's Genesis 6:9. As soon as you see anything that says that someone was a just man and perfect in his generations and walked with God, we're proposing that is a clue that we are talking about meditation or prayer, call it whichever you like. And the reason why is we know that in the physical, there's nothing we do is perfect and just in the sense of how this verse is put, and walking with God. You can only walk with God when you're in the garden, when you're in the higher, okay? So Noah, which we said in the past meant, what we say that Noah means? Rest. And when we talked about meditation, we talked about because you're not taking thought, because you're watching and you're not engaging, it allows you to rest from the engagement of the mental activity of the mind, which is, where all of our stuff comes from, right? Good and bad, So the point is, Noah basically means you. Remember we said, this is the proposition, every character in this book is an aspect of your personality, okay? So Noah is you at rest. How is he resting? Well, let's read on. Because he walked with God. So, he's resting and he walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay. And the earth was also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. So in other words, when we're talking about the earth, we're talking about the mind, okay? Flesh. So you have that tug of war between the spiritual you and with Cain. It's this back and forth. So the flesh, or the physical, the lower, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the fruits of that has corrupted the mind. Okay, so now there's a struggle. Okay, and then there's corruption, meaning that now we're moving into a state of de-evolution in the mind because of the corruption. And what the corruption means, of course, is you can even look at it as the so-called generational curses. How we can pass things on from generation to generation through our DNA, right? So that's what this is talking about, is the mind. And the mind has become corrupted, okay? According to the book, because of the sons of God intercoursing with the daughters of men. The mixing, okay? So now something has to happen. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood, rooms thou shalt make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits. Let's make a little space here. Okay, let's get rid of this. Everything, every character in this book represents an aspect of our personalities. So the ark is going to be the length is 300 cubits. The breadth is 50 cubits. Breadth. And the height of it is 30 cubits. Okay? Now, the trick with this description is, what is a cubit? Well, a cubit is an old measurement, would be today what we know as 18 inches. 1.5 feet is a cubit. So again, when we go to numerology, 18 inches, 1 + 8 is what? 9. Okay? So while you get caught up in the externals of like, okay, the ark was this size and it was this wide and it was this high, and you think, okay, well, if I know what a cubit is, I can reproduce the ark. The ark is not a physical boat. Okay, the ark is actually, we're going to come to find, is actually you. Okay, Noah. 1 + 8 = 9. What do we say that means? Consciousness. Well, when you multiply 300 cubits out, it's always going to end up in 9. So, 9, 300 times 9 is 27. 9. 9 times 5 is 45. 4 + 5, 9. Same thing. So what it's telling you once again is don't get caught up in the descriptive elements. The clue is that anytime you talk about a cubit in this context, it's numerology, and it always comes up to 9. So the boat isn't a real boat. It's talking about consciousness, okay? Because all of this is happening in the mind. That's our proposition. So then we can jump down. A window shall, this is Genesis 6:16. A window shalt thou make to the ark, in a cubit thou shalt finish it above, and the door of the ark thou shalt set aside thereof, with lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. We may come back and discuss that, but let's just keep moving. And behold, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. Okay. So now what we're talking about is God is saying, hey, I need you to understand that I'm going to destroy everything. All life, all animal life. And you can't start looking on the external, because again, the point is this is all internal. So as we go to the next section where God says, but with thee I will establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife, and thy son's wife with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. So, when you say male and female, you're also talking about the masculine, the feminine, positive and negative. But in this sense, when it says bring them in by 2, it's actually talking about, this is again some numerology. The number 2 can connote 2 different things. It can be you just have to establish the context. You and God, because 1 is always God, right? In numerology, 1 is God. Okay. 2 can be you and God, but it can also be duality. Remember we talked about duality installments back, right? Seeing things in pairs of opposites. Hot, cold, up, down, black, white, red, blue. That is telling you that this is a description of the physical, where we exist in separation, okay? Duality, okay? So in this context, the animals are brought in 2 by 2s because this is basically talking about the flesh, or the, duality, which is where the flesh would predominate, as opposed to when we talk about the spiritual. So all the animals are brought in by 2, and then, we all kind of know, it talks about the fowls and the cattle, and all the creeping things, so on and so forth. And Noah did what God commanded him. Wherever you want to say that Noah's Ark may have taken place, I'm just going to go along with it. The possibility that you're going to get 2 of every animal on the earth to the location of where Noah is and into a boat. I mean, I believe all of us can, if you just scan your mind for all the different kind of species on the planet, including birds, and we're going to get 2 of each, all these different species to this location and onto a boat. It's not what it's speaking about, right? The ark is you, and you're going to go within yourself. And the way you're going into yourself, you're bringing in the animal or the beastly you into meditation, okay? We're going to go into it more when we get to the next installment. But the point is that it has nothing to do with any animals in the external. What it's talking about is that there's going to be a storm, okay? There's going to be a flood. The flood that is being spoken about is spirit, not actual water. Remember, we talked about that when you go into meditation, you rise from, from the ground, right? The earth, to the water, to the air, to the fire. So in meditation, you are rising. So the lowest level, the physical, the carnal self, there's going to be a flood. God is going to send a flood, so you have to get into the boat or the ark, which is actually yourself. You bring all of the animal nature into the ark. Remember, we talked about the sacrifice wasn't an actual physical external event. Well, this is the same thing. It's all internal. So we'll get into like the chakras, because this is what's going to come up next. Is the chakras is going to be like an introduction into Noah, his wife and his 3 sons and their 3 wives, which is 7, is actually symbolic of the 7 chakras in meditation, because that's what you're doing. You're moving up the spine, the spinal column. Okay, we'll get more into that, but all we're trying to do now is frame this story, let you know that now numerology is also giving us clues as to what we're talking about. We're talking about duality with 2. And remember, that's for the unclean animals. But with the clean animals, this is Genesis 7:2, of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by 7s, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and his female. So the unclean beast, duality, the physical, the lower, goes in by 2 because of the dual nature, the separation. The clean animals, or that which has been cleansed going into meditation, it's 7 because there are 7 chakras, which was discussed in the next installment. And as you rise, you take the sacred energy, and as it rises, it's symbolic also of rising in meditation and rising above the emotions and the thoughts of the mind. We'll cut it off there, and we'll pick it up in the next installment. So once again, Thank you.